Like had long claws with very long, sharp fingernails.
Author Linda Godfrey worked as a reporter for the local newspaper. In 1992, she began to hear of encounters with what was described as a werewolf lurking around a rural country lane known as Bray Road.
One woman came upon it suddenly while returning home from work late one night, and her headlights of her car hit this thing that appeared to be kneeling as a person would kneel, not crouching like an animal. And it was holding its hands or claws, palms up, with a dead animal of some sort that she took to be roadkill. And as she passed it, she slowed up to look, and it gave her kind of a malevolent stare. Did not seem afraid, just looked right back at her and really frightened her out of her wits.
To date, Godfrey has collected reports of the Beast of Bray Road from over 24 reliable witnesses, and stories still keep coming in.
The eyes are yellow and they're unwavering. It's not an animal that's shying away from you. It's something that seems to want to look people directly in the eye and almost seeks that. And then once it has asserted itself by returning that gaze, then it melts off. It seems to have a very frightening effect on people.
So far, no one's been able to capture the beast, even on film. But there are a number of theories that attempt to explain what it might be.
I've heard from a few of them who believe that the Beast of Bray Road can be explained in that it is an immature lycanthrope who hasn't learned how to master its transformations. And so that is why it continually is caught being seen by these people.
Cryptozoologists and other researchers continue to collect reports of these creatures around the world. But to get a real sense of how vampires and werewolves might live, you have to venture into the underworld of the undead and come face to face with them firsthand.
Let's face it, you don't want to go around discussing blood or cutting people up just to anybody in a bar.
We now return to Fang versus fiction. Vampires and werewolves are more than just figures of fiction and legend. Everywhere around the world, modern-day vampires and werewolves exist on the fringes of society, denizens of a hidden underworld rarely seen by outsiders.
You would never necessarily notice. It can be somebody sitting next to you who's dressed in a business suit and going to Wall Street.
By day, they are accountants, secretaries, lawyers. By night, they transform into creatures of darkness. At least 1,000 actual blood drinkers are estimated to inhabit the United States alone.
And I was involved. I was told numbers into the tens of thousands.
While true vampires remain hidden, two members of the modern-day vampire subculture agreed to come forward to provide a rare insight on blood drinking. But they did not allow their intimate ritual to be filmed. Crudelia works as a DJ in Amsterdam.
And besides, it's a kind of thing that you still want to keep discreet and not too much out. Not so much because it's dangerous, but because it's still considered a major taboo in society.
Vampire subculture is elaborately organized. There are households, courts, and havens, vampire nightclubs like this one hidden in an Amsterdam basement. Blood drinkers and their like meet here once a month to socialize and meet potential partners. Mordita Calavera is a member of Crudelia's haven.
It used to be, as a child, whenever I would see blood, I would go crazy. I would be like, oh my God, and I want to pour it all over my body.
For me, it's a dependency, nothing more than that. Like a very strong burst down to the nape of my neck, taking my brains and going down my spinal column, irradiating very slowly, and then having a more calming effect.
These modern-day vampires have a finely tuned taste for blood.
Vegetarian non-smokers. They got the cleanest blood. try tasting blood with nicotine and you find out something very unpleasant about it. It's like somebody put a nicotine patch in your beer. And meat load up your blood system with proteins and make it very heavy and sluggish.
Because blood is so rich in iron, mortal humans can only ingest a small amount without getting sick, let alone survive on it.
What is the biology of an animal that actually survives on blood? The vampire bat is a good example. And so I looked at their physiological structure. How do they drink it? How do they take it in? How does their system actually work on it? What kind of nutrients are extracted from blood through their particular system?
Blood is so high in iron content that vampires consume as much as 800 times more than an average human. Evidence suggests that vampire bats have a highly efficient mucous membrane along the intestinal tract that prevents too much iron from getting into the bloodstream. But unlike the vampire bat, immortal beings can only thrive on the blood of one species, humans. According to the American Red Cross, there is currently no replacement for human blood. Animal blood won't do, and at least for now, human blood can't be manufactured. Within some clans, blood exchange is done regularly, but because of blood-borne diseases, it can be dangerous. So many modern-day vampires have monogamous relationships, at least as far as their blood partner is concerned.
I take apart a little tiny piece of a human into myself, and this human must be very, very special and very unique before I would do such a thing.
When the vampire is taking the blood, they're taking not just life essence, they're taking something about the person into themselves. They're taking that heartbeat, they're taking what makes that person an individual, a human, and they're drinking that into themselves.
Many in the vampire subculture wear a special symbol that identifies them to others of the same kind.
Let's face it, you don't want to go around discussing blood or cutting people up just to anybody in a bar.
And you won't find vampires and werewolves congregating in those same clubs or bars.
Your snooty gothic attitude is, oh, we don't run with those dogs. And the attitude primarily of the pack here is vampires. You know, we have a name for vampires here in New Orleans. And they say, what is that? And we say, lunch.
Gypsy Zanbar is a New Orleans resident and a local leader of the Lycans.
It was always here before I came, but I started bringing it out into the open. I was eventually put into a position of power. I was given this ring, which has the ankh, and it was handmade for me. It's a symbol of the ruling class of werewolf.
Gypsy believes that he suffers from a hereditary condition, one with no medical cure.
I warn people about it. I tell them, you know, basically don't make me angry. You won't like me very much when I'm angry.
For centuries, the moon has been blamed for causing the transformation, and plenty of scientific evidence exists to support its powerful effect.
Even a man who is pure of heart, says his prayers, can become a wolf man if he's bitten in the light of the full moon.
One study has asserted that changes in the brain's electrical activity coincide with lunar phases. Other researchers claim that the body's metabolism increases during the full moon. Police often note that especially violent crimes seem to occur more frequently during periods of full moon. But the essential shape-shifting nature of werewolves has defied science for centuries. Like vampires, it is assumed that lycans suffer from a genetic mutation either inherited or acquired through a viral infection.
It's a genetic disorder. All the way back on both sides, Romanian Gypsy descent. All the way, traceable all the way to Vlad Dracu.